All right, we're on.
Live.
We're live. Let's make sure this is going to the feed on LinkedIn. Sean said it has like a delay. Oh, we're live on YouTube. That worked. That was quick. I don't know if anybody's watching yet, but if you are, we're gonna get started in a few minutes. It's the first time we've ever done this, so bear with us.
The pre-banter, 3-minute pre-banter.
Yes, it's our pre-show banter like Black Hills. There you go. We're live on LinkedIn. Cool. So yeah, we'll see if it gives us the actual chat. Very curious to see how that works.
I'm going to try and post something in the chat, see if it works.
That'll work. I just sent a test message on YouTube. Hey! Yes, it does. All right, the YouTube one works.
Cool.
Sweet. Let's see. If you watch on LinkedIn, can you comment? I would assume you can.
There is chats. I see people typing. 13 seconds ago.
It should. Let's see. Yep, that works.
Yeah, it should. Yeah, we're live.
We are live. We got 1 minute and we'll get started. I have this like image in my head of Jason Blanchard opening these when they do their weekly whatevers, and I'm like,
the cast, yeah.
Not to sound like him, because he has a very distinct way of opening these. I want to be a copycat. All right. Is the comments section the chat? Good question. Try it out.
I think the fact that we see the comments is a good sign. At least we could see it.
All right. You can also make the comments appear on the video, which I don't think we need to do. But
yeah, if people have questions, we could just read it out.
That's
the question.
Cool. All right, it's 12 o'clock. We are officially live with the first DenSecure Cast. I'm Joe Sarkisian, lead pen tester here at DenSecure. Alex Martin, also a lead penetration tester at DenSecure. We wanted to start doing this just because, A, we think it's a fun idea. We'd be lying if we said we didn't think it would, potentially lead to some work here and there, right? But I think my primary reason for wanting to do this is, getting more involved with the community than we traditionally get to, like, writing blog posts and all that good stuff. I mean, going live and having conversations with people, taking comments, sooner or later as this goes on, if people like it, we'll start inviting guests, things like that. We wanted to start us off kind of like a basic, pretty easy, quote unquote, easy topic. Being a penetration tester in 2026, what's that like? I've got some things we want to chat about related to that. Also, we are hiring a penetration tester right now, senior penetration tester. You can find the job description on the Wolf & Co website. Possibly the fastest way to go there, and this is not a plug, is see that QR code. It is not a phishing link. That will take you to our DenSecure services page, and then from there you should be able to see, I don't remember the name of the title of the header, but you'll be able to find the job description on the site. So without further ado, Alex, I want a little intro about you and where you come from.
Yeah, Alex Martosian, lead pen tester. I've been with the firm for over 7 years, coming on 8. I've been doing penetration testing all my time at Wolf. I started first in the IT advisory group doing IT audits, and I studied mathematics in college, and I knew that offensive security was a passion of mine, wanted to get into it. So I worked my way up through getting the OCP training off hours and just studying as much as I possibly could to break into the field and build out the DenSecure group. At least some history from what Wolf was about and what Joe just described from DenSecure. We didn't exist or at least the brand didn't exist up until 3 or 4 years ago. So he somewhat helped shape up what the group is all about now, which we're really happy about and proud to showcase a full tester suite of everything on board is from Wolf, right? This is what we built from the ground up from once we started here. So yeah, looking forward to describing our path and what we did. I'll turn it over to you, Joe. You're on mute, Joe.
Go figure. Yeah, that had to happen sooner.
First time.
Yeah, first time. Yeah, so Alex and I have been here about the same time together. I think you might have a couple months on me, but about a little over 7 years. Hired as a pen tester. So yeah, kind of the same path as Alex. We kind of came up together, and I think our goal was like, okay, where is this team? Like before it was even called DenSecure. Where do we want it to go? Took a lot of inspiration from some of those classic, security only consulting firms that you all know and love. Looked at the way they did things and said, how can we make that, our version of that here? Like, what kind of services can we offer? What's the latest and greatest, and how do we get there? Right. So that was our goal. I think we're doing pretty well personally. And yeah, I mean, everything's going well at DenSecure. Like I said, we're growing. I guess I should have said my start here. I did not take a traditional path. I was in politics and I was a bartender. And I'd always been interested in security. And finally, at the ripe old age of, 42? I don't know, like 10 years ago, I was like, I need to switch roles. I need to actually do it. It's not too late. So it's never too late, right? People tell you that all the time, but it's really never too late as long as you have a passion you want to put the time in. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we started. I think we want to talk a little bit about, what our day-to-day is like here. And we should caveat this by saying, just because anything we say on here is our personal experience here, right? We are kind of in a unique position where we are on a security. This is how I describe our group. We're a security company bolted to the side of a 115-year-old CPA firm, right? And that has very specific subtleties, right? Where you're not going to get from, if you are a consultant at a CPA firm that happens to have a penetration testing function, right? Where we've tried to build out and get away from that because, we sometimes think it can look a little disingenuous, I guess you could say, when the CPA firm, says they do pen testing on the side and they might be 1099 in that workout, right? Who knows? We obviously do not do that. Here we are. We're sitting here in front of you all. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is we have a kind of a unique path, right? In a unique place that we work. And we're fortunate that we have that consulting firm behind us because we get the budget that comes with that. We get the clients that come with that, right? Maybe they were just tax clients or whatever, and now they're working with DenSecure on some things, right? Which is great. So just everything is from that vantage point. These are our opinions, right? And we don't necessarily, speak for the firm, right? That typical thing that everybody has to say. Maybe I don't have to say it, but it's just we're unique snowflakes, right? So take what we say with a grain of salt. And yeah, so I mean, Alex, what would you say, kind of like your day-to-day job? Our day-to-days are different now. They used to be the same. Now they're a little different. So what is your day-to-day like?
Yeah, it comes with everything with executing security assessments. So we both have the title of a lead penetration tester, which has changed quite a bit from once I first started.
For now,
when I first started, it was
yeah,
right. Yeah, when we first started, it was pen testing weekly on a different client, essentially just working through the consulting experience of working on different accounts and trying to compromise whatever the targets we were performing testing for. Now it's a mix of doing that and also developing capabilities, resourcing, scheduling, reaching out to clients, prospects, sales calls. So it's kind of all over the place for my role now. And I imagine you're the same way, Joe, but the we're still very much in the field, and that's something that I think both wanted to ensure that we're still in that capacity and still continues with learning, since especially with offensive security and I guess any consulting role, we didn't want to be managers that didn't know what we were doing or had the field experience of understanding the technical work. So I still keep up with the day-to-day as much as I possibly can. We're still doing more of the advanced work, and that's something I'm interested in developing for our services, of going beyond just as traditional network pen testing and developing more interesting scenario-based offensive assessments, whether it be assumed breach testing, and hopefully later on more of the red teaming experience that we're trying to develop internally as well. So yeah, mixed day to day. It's different every day, which is exciting. If you are a consultant, you probably understand what I'm talking about in regards to it's different every day, and the clients that we work with are different, but the ability to adapt and look at different things every day is what keeps me excited and what I look forward to during the day. I'm the type of person that needs to have something new essentially every time.
Yeah, I'd second that. My role, I guess you could say, so in CPA terms, I'm senior manager, right? But also lead pen tester. So that's we kind of have to like ride the line of those two different terminologies. That's changing. But I would say my job now has become more, it is the testing, right? But it's also a lot of business development and things like that. It's managing the team. It is reviewing reports. There's all kinds of stuff. And I guess the reason I bring this up is we have hired people before, and we know that this is a thing in other companies, right? Like, I don't know which companies, but I've definitely heard that a lot of other places, especially bigger teams, are very segmented in their duties, right? So like, you may be that person who, is working on billable work 40 hours a week. You have findings, you draft a basic finding, and then you potentially never hear about that again, right? It goes into a report that somebody else edits, that somebody else puts together, that somebody else presents to a client, right? That is not how things work here. And that's kind of both intentional and unavoidable, I guess you could say at this point, because of the size of the team. There's only about 8 of us right now, but we're growing. I think, that's good in the sense that you get thrown into a lot of those things, right? So if you read our job description, it will say, we prefer people with client-facing experience. Ideally, we've worked in a consulting role before, right? Had to do all the things that come with that, present reports, be a decent writer, present well to varying audiences, things like that. And I've been yelled at before on Twitter for suggesting that is of the most, I think, beneficial pathways for your professional career doing this, right? Like, clients, you've probably heard this before, like, clients pay for the report. They don't pay for you to, find the coolest, latest, hackery thing, right? That we all get excited about. That's part of the job. Otherwise we wouldn't do it, but it's not the end product. The end product is the report, right? And the client service aspects, which I guess kind of leads into our next thing that we kind of want to talk about, which is being a quote unquote hacker versus being a consultant. Alex, what does that mean to you, a hacker versus a consultant? When we were writing up our basic notes for this show, I mean, that was kind of just the terminology that came out, and I know how I kind of want to talk about it, but what does it mean to you?
Yeah. I think the hacker part is driven off of passion for the day-to-day work. I still get an adrenaline rush when I'm in a client's environment and we're able to escalate privileges to domain admin, or we find an interesting path where we can social engineer a victim and get their credentials and pivot off to Microsoft 365 or a cloud environment. That's the hacker mindset, and kind of trying new techniques and developing capabilities. That to me is the hacker mindset. But to be honest, the industry has glamorized offensive security more so than any other consulting adjacent role that I've ever seen. Usually what I see is that people think a pen tester is still someone sitting in their basement and just only doing the technical work. And I know there's very smart people that can do that very well, and they execute and are very deeply technical, and they are very passionate about the role. But at the end of the day, as a penetration tester, especially for an advisory firm or people that are doing consulting, that is the first and foremost place that is probably the most important to me in regards to be able to speaking to clients. And outside of just speaking to clients and presenting findings in your deliverable, writing is probably the most important aspect of what we do. Can you actually understand and write intelligently of what the finding actually means to the point that anyone can understand it? Someone removed from the IT and security space entirely can read the finding, understand what the impact is. So that's, I guess, somewhat controversial in terms of where people think and have glamorized penetration testing, where they simply just think it's a technical aspect. But to me, that's a place of emphasis that I look at for a penetration tester, that they could do both, and more so have a better skill set in regards to writing and keeping their schedule up to date, and less so about the technical aspects, because people can learn new techniques every time, right? That's what we're doing during our day to day. It's much more difficult to get those soft skills of presentation and delivery for the client and what they need.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, hacker Twitter is not real life, right? So like, we see, or I see at least, people, when I talk about things like that, I had somebody recently yell at me on Twitter for, I don't know if the ultimate thing was supposed to be that I was a gatekeeper because these were my opinions on, how to be successful as like a penetration tester, right? There's different ways to go about it. But yeah, we get, every time we have a job opening, we'll get those resumes that say, top 1% on Try Hack Me, right? Whatever they've done on Hack the Box. And it's like, okay, that's all well and good. And, the 17 different programming languages when they may only know actually like one of them, right? So it's like the industry, I think, like Alex said, very much is like, yeah, but how lead are you as a hacker? Or, and like, how many technical things do you know? Like that seems to be prioritized. And we definitely see that in resumes, is like they prioritize that as opposed to, the consulting skill set that they, maybe they don't have a ton of or none of, but like, have a blog that you're writing, right? Like have, maybe you've given a presentation at a B-side or something like that, like throw that stuff on there. I mean, people do, right? But I still feel like, especially with all the trainings that are out there now, like back in the day, it was what, a $10,000 SANS class or the OSCP, right? That's way different from when we kind of started this job, right? In a matter of only 7 8 years. And I think it just like everybody's trying to take all the training and learn all the things. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, if you can't turn that into a cogent, package about yourself, right? When you're presenting yourself as an employee for, a consultancy or any given company like ours, right? It's going to be a little hard. And I mean, I guess that also leads into the whole bug bounty thing a little bit too. I know that's not on our bingo card to talk about today, but it kind of fits in here. Bug bounty is not penetration testing, I guess, is what I would say, right? You might have a lot of cool skills, right? As like, that might translate to like web app hacking, right? That could work, right, in a consultancy, but like you're very rarely having to actually present anything you do on bug bounty. You don't really have a boss, right? There's no other people necessarily that you have to work with in an office setting. Those are good. Like I said, those are good skills to have, but they're just not the same roles, right? So like you'll get some people that when they apply will, and even people that don't work here anymore that have worked here in the past, right? Like they'll be on a penetration test and they'll be treating it like it's a bug bounty, right? They're not trying to put the pieces together of like, why does this matter, right? Why is a client going to care if I can pop alert 1, in a cross-site scripting attack? You know what I mean? Like prove the risk of that. Prove that this is not just like a take a hammer and everything's a nail type of a job, right? In a consultancy as a penetration tester, at least. I don't know. Have anything to add to that, Alex? Or
yeah, I mean the noise in regards to our industry has increased over the years, in my opinion. I mean, especially with AI, we've seen what happened with Curl with their bug bounty program. They've removed their participation in those bug bounty programs intentionally because of the sheer amount of noise that is being generated. That's not even impactful. I think it's very easy to get into a mindset that as a security professional or consultant, you could raise things that are trivial in nature and are just looking to hammer a client with as many findings that aren't impactful whatsoever. But I think that's a key difference between what a penetration tester, or a good one is, at least in my opinion, is they can deliver the full impact of what they're performing. And it's in English, it's understood on both sides, and it's just there to be presented. Versus, I think the top 1-2% of bug bounties can easily translate, and they probably get paid more for what they're doing, and have dived into the bug bounty space extremely well and have thought out how they're pursuing that. But in terms of what I've seen, is training is overly saturated. There's more training than when we ever started. But the problem still exists where that training isn't really accommodating. It's almost like security awareness training. Like, we're constantly doing phishing exercises. We have all the new offensive security trainings that teach you about Active Directory and teach you about all these techniques for web apps and so on. But it's rarely translated to demonstrating. And in fact, it's probably necessary and expected at this point. When you and I first started, OSCP meant you not only pass the HR filter, pretty much
straight to the front of the line.
Yeah, you're going straight as a consultant if you have the OSCP. Nowadays, I know our opinions differ of if the OSCP is necessary in least or not for our firm, not just me and you, but that's no longer just going to get you a job, unfortunately. And that's true for any training that you may be doing.
Marketing and biz dev.
Yeah.
They like to have those letters next to your name.
Yeah, that's true. And some clients do. I mean, some clients, that's what they kind of expect that you already have. And the market is very competitive. I mean, it's a very job centric role right now that the employer has the power to kind of decide and very slowly choose who they want, just because of how many people were promised, if you do these trainings, you get the OCP, you're going to get a job. But we've seen 4 or 5 years now that hasn't really translated for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Yeah. You hear about it all the time, which is sad, right? I mean, I can't even, I wouldn't even know where to start with, it's like people ask me at a conference, like students or, people who are somewhat green in the field and want to get in, what training should I take? Right. Or what should I focus on? And I'm like, I don't even know, the sheer amount of training that is out there right now, some of which is terrible and everybody knows about, and some of which is great and nobody knows about, including me. Right. It's I don't even know where do you even tell them to start at this point? Right. I mean, sure, we know that, and I'm sure that there's debate to be had here too. OffSec has, good material, right? They're not cheap. I mean, they're not SANs, right? But they're not cheap. Then you've got, the Black Hills, $500 or pay what you can. Those, I've taken a couple of those. Those are pretty good. But I mean, beyond that, and Pen Tester Academy, I've heard things about that, good, bad, and otherwise, right? Some of it is in the eye of the beholder, I guess you could say, but at the same time, what do you tell people? And I know they've asked you that question before. What training should I take, Alex?
Yeah, that's true. I think it's still, at least it is very competitive, and the OCP isn't as much as what it meant a couple of years ago. It is still the HR filler to get past those candidates. Not to say our firm, I see a question which we'll respond to in a second, but we personally, for us, right, I don't care if you have the OCP or not, right? That's just how we look at resumes. It's a nice to have, definitely. It's something I can look at quickly and understand. But for example, for you and I remember we had this conversation when I got the OCP. I said, okay, now what? It was very exciting that you got that certification. Oh, yeah.
It took 15 minutes. I was like, all right.
Yeah, exactly. What's now? I don't know anything. And I think that's the same is true for training. You do the training, you get probably inspiration, but the training doesn't mean that you're going to be a penetration tester. And that's unfortunately what people are promising. I think the people offering those trainings are saying that you will get a job just because you do X boot camp or X certification, but that's just not the reality. And to me, those trainings just at least provide inspiration for me. So if I'm working in a lab, I'll say, okay, this looks interesting. I can now dive into this a little bit more outside of using the training that I've learned to actually dive into the topic a little bit more specifically. But when I get those questions from students, I usually direct them to identify a niche and what do they actually want to focus on.
Right.
We talked about bug bounties. Web app testing is very different than internal network penetration testing against an Active Directory environment. And that's something that you probably want to identify of what is the niche and area that you want to spend time in. Is it more of the enterprise environments that you want to assess almost everything in totality of Active Directory, doing more specific and targeted assessments, or is it application based with iOS and web apps? That's where I want to direct at least students to go to first, of understanding, hey, this is what I want to do. And then the training can be applied to get inspiration, or at least try it and see and get an understanding of, hey, I don't like doing web apps whatsoever, right? It's a necessary skill. You should probably know at least something of how web apps obviously work and have that generalist experience, but not necessarily to say you need to be an expert in every domain, right?
Well, that's part of the problem, though, is that like everybody, like I feel like a lot of the job recs that are out there that I see are like, like they want you to know everything, right? Or they expect you to know everything coming in the door, or at least, a little of everything coming in the door. So it's like, I think it's way easier to tell someone to specialize after they already had a job or get a job and have been in a role and been exposed to things than it is like, I've never had one, I'm going to specialize in being a web app tester. It's like, okay, well, great. I don't remember the last time I saw, and I'm sure they're out there, I just haven't seen them, but like entry-level web application penetration tester, right? Like, and you can only imagine how like the kinds of resumes that place is going to get, right? All the bug bounty people, all the whatever, right? I mean, at least with us, and I know, again, I keep saying this, like this is just us talking. We, when we started, it was like we would have to tell management, like, we don't know how to do those things. You can't sell that. Like they want you to know everything, and they think you know everything, right? Even though we didn't. To this day, you never know everything, but like, just brass tacks, there are things we would say, like, do not sell that to somebody because we do not have the skill set for that yet, right? So I think it's easier said than done to be like, yeah, just specialize in this one thing. I think it's easy to say, like, and usually when somebody comes up to me and asks, I'm like, okay, well, do you like more offense? Do you like more defense, right? Like, where do you fall in those two categories? Okay, defense, okay, then we can push, you can go in a certain direction with that. Offense, you go in a certain direction with that. But still, there's so many. I mean, I remember even back when we started, like, I don't know if there's probably, aside from SANS, like, can you think of a single blue team focused training, especially like compared to now? I mean, it was even worse for blue team, right? Better now, but I still think there's more. Like, to your point about how everybody wants to be a pen tester or a red teamer or whatever. God, we should probably talk about the difference between those two things, but maybe that's another webcast. It's quote unquote sexier, I guess, for the red side, and everybody comes up and wants to know how to do red, right? Anyway, I think we could probably talk about this in the training thing forever. But I guess that also leads into the great certification debate, right? Everybody, I mean, we've been talking about that a little bit, right? But I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about certifications is I am of the firm mindset, after doing this a while, that they are, aside from strictly wanting to learn new skills, I think that they have diminishing returns the further you go in your career, right? So it's like, okay, I need to get hired somewhere, and I need to show on a resume that I have some type of technical acumen. Maybe I'm not ready to be, I'm not just going to walk in and be like the world's coolest Active Directory pen tester on day one, but I've taken training in that. Maybe that training comes along with a certification, right? Ideally, that certification is recognized in some way. It's not some random thing you found on the internet, right? Maybe it is, if you had the means, some type of an OffSec style course that happen to come with a training or with a certification. Maybe it's Pen Tester Academy stuff. Maybe it's, certain things on Hack the Box where you can show like badges or some of their trainings that they have, right? But I think that once you get that role, right, I think unless there's a specific, you're taking it for the training, not the certification that comes with the training, right? So like, you should have the passion for wanting to learn it as opposed to being, this Pokemon collect them all style person of like, I just want to get every certification there is just to say that I have it. Right. You're going to waste a lot of money that way, in my opinion. Right. And like I said, I think, like, I don't know, like, we're fortunate. We've been here 7 years. We don't have to prove ourselves by getting another certification. People know what we're capable of, and we know we'll figure it out. Right. So unless the training is there, like the OSAI Alex and I were talking about the other day, that's offensive security is coming out with offensive security. What is the AI? Is it just AI?
I don't know. I think it's just AI.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do.
That's cert for basically like, pen testing and red teaming AI, LLM, chatbot, things like that they're coming out with in the spring. I think it would behoove both of us to do that because of the training aspect, cool. It's great to have OSAI next to your name. Right. But I think it's the future of our industry and things that we need to learn. And I think it'll be quality content, which is why we'd be interested in taking it. So I'll pause there. That's what I think. What about you?
Yeah, I'll first respond to a question in the chat. DW asked, what would be a successful candidate look like 6 months in terms of an individual team and company expectations at our DenSecure group? So I'll try to segue the certification debate with answering that question. So for us, I also don't, I view the OCP or these certifications as a gut check. It's kind of like a validation that at least the bare minimum. And if you look at the OSCP, that is very much so a generalist certification. It's a beginner certification, and that's kind of how it's sold. And
are they still making people do buffer overflow? I feel like I've asked that question and I forgot.
They may have removed that. I think it's optional now. I think they've changed it to now it's Active Directory. But in any event, that is still a beginner certification. I know how hard it is, and you're probably going to take, if not one, at least several attempts to get it on your first try, or to pass the exam at least. So it's a good thing to have, definitely. And for an HR filler, we don't look at it from a resume perspective of it's a must-to-have. So we've hired people that don't have the OSP or have put on their resume that they're working towards it and have given them opportunities internally to get out of training. But I have even swayed people away of saying, hey, what's the point of you taking the OCP when you're already doing Active Directory environments? What beyond just getting the certification, what are you going to provide value for our team, right? So part of the consultant and kind of experience that you pose or provide to the DenSecure team is what's going to provide us the most value and what is the skill set or capability that we do not have today. Because if we need to get asked those questions for management, or if we're trying to build out a new service, is there a new training that we could take to validate the skill set that we have and prove out the skills are there to be able to provide value to the client? And then two, it's kind of that chicken and egg problem that we value experience, obviously. So you can't really tell someone that doesn't have experience, where do you get that experience? Right. But if it's someone developing a lab or deploying a lab using Ludus, or if you're doing something in the background outside of just a training like Hack the Box or OACP, that's something I look forward to, of just kind of demonstrating like, hey, you've written a blog post describing your experience working through this lab environment. You kind of deployed it, you got stuck here, you kind of worked through these issues. And that's what I view it as more important trait of people that are persistent and don't just get stuck and kind of throw their hands up of saying, I don't know what to do from here, give me the answer, right? That's the attitude, at least, that has helped, at least with OSP, of like, you have to the try harder meme kind of thing of working through it, which is obviously controversial, but that at least helps to some extent of understanding that you have the knowledge and kind of aptitude to continue progressing somewhere to get to an end result. And you may get to an end result in many different ways. I may approach it and you may approach it completely different, but we're still getting to the same end. So that's an important quality and trait that I'd look for. And then I saw DW's other comment for the Hack the Box and Exploit DB and trainings. Those trainings usually have a path, right? In a client's environment, there's not always a path that exists. It is not an exploitable box that has this CVE or has this vulnerable service that you can just abuse immediately. It's sometimes a little bit more involved, where you have to chain different things together, go back a step or two based on enumeration that you've done, and kind of continue on. So that is one of the negatives, I guess, with training, right? There's always a path. There's always a path to push forward and persist on. Versus a client's environment, there's going to be roadblocks, there can be obstacles, errors that you have to debug with your tools and fix things. But that persistence and kind of curiosity to me, what I look for as a tester versus someone who could just get the right answer.
It's always going to be tool problems. Like when I do
when you don't install things with UV or PipX. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
I think also what DEW is trying to ask is like, and I'm taking this from my understanding of like within, if you get hired here in 6 months, what does it look like? We're hiring right now for a senior, right? So that would be, so our the ideal situation is you know how to do the basics of internals, externals, things like that, right? The way we do them. God, there's another webcast. There's between how we do things and how others potentially do things, right? I mean, we see all kinds of reports where it's like, oh, it's an internal pen test. And we look at it like, really? Like, you told them they have FTP open on their internal, and that was the only finding. Now, we don't know what the true scope was. Right? We don't know what happened between them and the client. But at the same time, it doesn't look great. You know, and maybe we're just kind of, maybe I'm stroking our own egos here, but like we focus on Active Directory, right? And so a lot of the people we see are still not Active Directory heavy on knowledge. It's more of that OSCP, hack the box, whatever style of thing where there's like this obscure
run nmap on X host and then find vulnerability.
There's like this obscure like port open on a host and they start trying to beat the crap out of it. It's like, yeah, that's a typical port that's open on a Windows, on a domain controller or whatever. That's like a high ephemeral port, right? That's like typically that should be there, right? And you're just spending hours beating away at this for no reason, right? So I think, you know, ideally within 6 months, our ideal candidate understands what I just said already. They've been around the block for 2-3 years, which I think it says in our thing, which is not, I don't think that's too much to ask for a job rec, right? Like you see these places like, oh, entry level, 5 years plus experience. It's like, no, that's not true. That's not fair, right? But somebody who basically quote unquote gets it, right? They get the consulting gig. They understand that it's client facing. They understand that the report's important. And as a senior, you're helping, you know, after 6 months to a year, we hope that you're going to be contributing to the team in training, helping train other pen testers that have not been here as long, don't have as much experience, helping to, you know, fix problems that arise, technical problems with our infrastructure, right? Or finding new ways to do things or more efficiencies, things like that, right? We're not expecting you to go out there and be a BD god and start like selling and all that stuff. Like ideally you want to do talks and go to conferences and things like that and represent. But it's not like a job requirement, I guess you could say. I mean, you think that's fair?
I think so, yeah. I mean, senior penetration tester, that seniors
are
every place is different with how they define a senior. For us,
yeah.
What you just said is accurate to me. A senior pen tester has the skills at least to be a general pen tester already, and is then able to extend their knowledge to the rest of the group, and they're able to go from end to end of the engagement, from the initial scoping of that exercise, executing the work, whether it be the internal Active Directory environment to external, and also then writing the report up in any platform, or kind of what do you choose to kind of present the findings.
Senior does not mean we expect you to be doing exploit dev.
Right.
You know,
well, that's different, right? The security researcher versus the pen tester is also different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 90% of what we do is either already disclosed or already kind of a known technique. And that's kind of the balancing act between pen testing versus security research, where you could dive into a service for weeks on end and try to figure out of a new 0-day or new technique against Active Directory, but then you're wasting the client's time.
Right. Yeah,
if there's a no SMB signing or no LDAP signing, and you're poking at this weird web app internally, that's kind of the balancing act that you as a professional kind of need to know that I should probably look there first, that there's going to be an attack path that's going to be very impactful and probably more interesting for the client to know about, rather than hammering a service that just seems weird and that you want to poke at to find a new CV and write a weird Python script that doesn't do anything, and you just wasted all the time. Right. Because for any pen test, you're not going to find everything, right? That's kind of the other part to it too. We're not just running Nessus and then outputting that scan result into the client's face and saying, "Here's your
still a thing list." Still a huge thing, apparently.
Yeah, but you're usually in a position
when we started here.
Yeah,
that's what the industry was, and it's still.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I guess places that do that, I got to be making money hand over fist. Like, how much effort does it take to run a Nessus scan and then poke at like the easy stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're all about impact here, right? So it's a matter of, I don't really even care if you get domain admin. There's scenarios where you're not going to get domain admin, but there's a path to demonstrate high impact. If you're working for a financial institution and you get access to wire data or customer member data,
yeah,
and you didn't need to get domain admin, that's a huge impact.
Social security cards, driver's licenses, right?
Yep.
PII. That scares them more than domain admin.
For sure, yeah. Other question here, Joe. How does DenSecure approach knowledge sharing? Do you maintain a team wiki or anything along those lines?
You want to talk about the team wiki?
Yeah. So here we've taken inspiration from TrustedSec's Obsidian Vault. There's a GitHub from TrustedSec that they produced to be able to sync Obsidian notes via GitHub. So it's version controlled, meaning that anyone could provide and write to that database. Unfortunately, just with all information knowledge platforms, it's just a matter of how often the team actually uses it. So things like hacker recipes, or if you have like a technique that you ran. So if I didn't know how to do delegation attacks against LDAP, and I'm helping a team member to kind of uncover that attack path, and we go through it, that's going to be an important thing to be able to distribute to the rest of the group, because that's tribal knowledge, in where I'm just information sharing to one person or individual that then is not going to be able to translate nicely to the rest of the group. So that's what we've attempted to do. But to be honest, that's a difficult one to solve, because that requires everyone on the team to be able to use it and actively, meaningfully use it. If people are using their own notes or kind of their own processes, they don't update it. That's as good as your knowledge sharing is going to be, even if it's version controlled, whatever the extent is. So yeah, that's a tricky one. It's based on if the team wants to support and use it. That's what we try to do, though, using Obsidian notes and version control if I get.
I think it's fair to say we suck at maintaining it, if we're just being.
Yeah, we definitely,
to be honest. Yeah, no, I think I have nothing more to say about that. I think that's true. Jeshua, who works here.
He was an intern for IS team. His internship ended next year.
I don't know. His question. I know you said the OSCP is an entry-level cert to get as a pen tester. When would you say is the right time to tackle that cert after doing X amount of pro labs on HDB or any other projects you might be working on? I know that a right time is very vague. If you have the money and if you feel like you're ready. Like, I don't know how I'll say it. You know what I mean? It's like, what are they charging now? $1,500 for the buy one or the what?
Might be more. I think that's just for like 30 days or something. If you want like annual, it's like 2,100.
2,500 I think is unlimited for a year, right?
Yeah,
I think that's what they're charging now, which is still. We only have 4 people in here right now, so it's still way more useful than a SANS course, in my opinion. And it's a quarter of the price these days. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't do it. There's certainly like the there's definitely certain guardrails for taking it, right? Like if you don't know your way around a Linux command line, then you're definitely not ready to start OSCP. I would also say, like, you know, you should have a foundation of like I said, Linux command line, Kali, how some of those tools work, Nmap, right? It'll make your life a whole lot easier than, you know, walking. I think the first 10 pages when we took the OSCP of that thing was like, okay, you know, running Nmap against the target and yada, 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 and, you know, finding SMB port. And it's like, if you don't have any understanding of any of that terminology, then you're starting from behind. So I think you have to feel it out yourself, right? Like, you know, read people's blogs on their experience with it. You know, there's a million of them out there, right? On YouTube, people have written on their own blogs about their experience with it, right? Anybody that has it, ask them about their experience with it before you make that decision, right? And I think there's also, at least with me, I bought the year and then did not necessarily use that time to my best, to my advantage, right? Because I was like, oh, I got a year, you know, like, I'll get to it. You know, I got a bunch of, I got a 9 to 5. I'll get to it. by the 6 months or by 3 months, right? Because then you got a timeline, and it's a pretty short timeline, right? And it forces you to schedule that exam and see where you're at, right? Like it. I only tell this story because I think it was kind of eye opening for me. I interviewed at the CIA a while back, and we started talking in the interview about the OSCP, and they were telling me like, oh yeah, we got guys with like their third or fourth try, and I'm like, this is a CIA. Like, aren't you all supposed to know this stuff? Like, why is it taking you 3-4 tries? You know what I mean? Like to get this. So like, if it takes you more than 1 or 2, who cares? Right? Like, it's the process and it's learning, and it's like, don't get discouraged, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I mean, my point was it is an entry-level certification. It's a beginner certification. It doesn't mean it's easy, right? I view it as everything in the OSCP handbook is fair game in the exam, and that's what makes it very difficult. It's just the sheer amount of knowledge that you need to know as a beginner is going to be very difficult to consume, between how to do port forwarding, using netexec against Active Directory, using Impacket, using all these different tools, and how these protocols and services all intertwine, how Active Directory even works. We had to write buffer overflows when we had to do it, right? There's all these topics jammed into this one course, which makes it difficult. But the level of knowledge and experience is still entry level, right? That's kind of the point that I would come across. Again, I don't know if you're looking for entry level positions. It's definitely nice to have. You're going to pass it. People are going to look at it and give you respect that you have it. But I would caution people from the ego check of saying just because you have the OCP doesn't really mean anything at all.
Do not expect you to get hired because you have it. Like,
yeah,
it's not
that's
like
what I'd say.
I feel like you had a much better chance of just very, very close to 2 feet in the door when we started if you had that, as opposed to now.
Yeah, it's much easier back then, where if you have the OCP, it's wow, this is at least a guarantee hire, or someone that's definitely looking. Entry level and certainly not entry level aspect. Yeah, I agree with that. But that's kind of the problem with it, right? To offensive security and penetration tester, that's a very technical role as in itself, right? It's not a your first job straight out. If you're passionate and can get to it, great, but that's definitely one of the complexities.
All right. If any other questions come up, we'll address them as soon as we can. A couple other things we want to chat about. The consultant grind. Not gonna lie, when you have deadlines, it can be a grind, right? We're a consulting company. We're not going to put you on 15 tests a week like people we've hired and we've heard horror stories about. If you've heard the term pen test puppy mill, right, which I think is an apt or a good way to put it, people come out of where they're expected to do like 5-6 tests in 1 week, and they're just melting down, right? That is not us, right? But it is consulting, right? Like, we have deadlines, clients expect things at a certain time. We have calendars, we have to keep up with those. We have a busy season, right? So like September through December until like bleeding into like maybe a little bit of January, like we work 50-hour weeks. Everything else is 40 hours. We work 50 hours because that's, again, we're a CPA firm, right? Like, people have end of year, right? They need to get things done. Regulatory stuff, right? So regulations kind of drive a lot of what we do, right? Whether they're federal, state, local, whatever they may be. We have a lot of financial clients, a lot of healthcare clients. So, HIPAA, FDIC, DC, and what the hell is the New York one?
The New York one?
NYDFS, yeah.
NYDFS, yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of dealing with that, right? So it is, at the end of the day, you are a consultant with a fun job, I guess you could. It's a job, but you're a fun version of a consultant, right? So yeah, it can be a grind, and you have to manage your time, right? And you have to manage your time, or you will. Another topic here is burnout, or you will burn out, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've gone through it. I've felt burned out before, where I'm like, I want to touch this keyboard 9 to 5, and I don't want to look at it again for a long time. And I've gone through months of feeling that way before, right? You got to know when it's time to step away and like touch grass, take time for yourself. I know sometimes you feel like it's easier said than done, especially when you're a new staff or like a new pen tester, and like, you're learning, and it takes you longer to do everything, right? Because you're somewhat new. there's Tiberius. Hey, man. He said, hey, Joe. Hey, Tiberius. Good to see you here. Thanks for coming. Looks like we got some DenSecure crew here as well. A Pirate Moo. She's on our team. Cool. What else do we want to chat about? I mean, the great AI debate, I guess, would be where I would like, we can cap this. And then if there's any other questions, we can take them. AI has not come for our jobs yet. It's changing them, and it will change them more and more, right? So we aren't currently being asked to. Actually, no, we are occasionally. People will go to some conference, and I can't swear in this. Some idiot, will get on stage and start scaring the crap out of everybody with, somebody's going to create a hologram of your boss, and that hologram's going to walk into the office, and it's going to look just like your boss, and it's going to ask you to buy a bunch of Amazon gift cards, and it's going to this and it's going to that, right? Like, oh, really? Not right now. Yeah, we do get asked occasionally, like, hey, can you spoof our boss's voice, right, for like Vision calls or something like that. We get asked. I mean, we use AI already for all that, right? Like phishing campaigns and things like that. Like, yeah, it's way easier to use AI to come up with some of that stuff, right, to help to craft like phishing emails and whatever. So we use it. It can speed up, like if how do you use this tool again, right? Or like, what's the best way to go about this or that or whatever, right? So we use it, but it's working for us right now. It's not taking our work, I guess is maybe a way to put it. Obviously, there's going to be a million people who disagree or agree or somewhere in between with me on that. I mean, what do you think, Alex?
I think there's two things here. The first is that I think what we saw 10 or 15 years ago with the Nessus scan and find CV exploit with Metasploit has always existed, and that's going to change now to an AI agent that can find Active Directory, very trivial path, running responder, using netexec to get domain admin. I think that's coming soon. I don't think it's here yet, and the context window is very difficult. I haven't been really impressed with what I've seen so far with using models to that capability. Yeah, like running respond, like the cookie cutter PT that exists with running responder, relaying to SMB and relaying to LLab. I think that, yes, and
the
AI
most
agent,
useful and most useless tool that's ever been made.
I think an AI agent will be able to do that. The trivial paths that
can already
every pen tester will know. Yeah, they can already probably do it. The other complexity in where kind of the person is going to have to sit in, and that's where I don't know if AI is, at least to what I've seen, based on its capability, is going to be able to do it, is the novel attack paths, or like when there's issues with like if there's an issue with the error or something, how does it debug it and is it able to loop through successfully? I don't know about that, if it's able to do that just yet. The other side to it, or like the second part I wanted to talk about is, for capability improvements, scripting is now open to anyone if you use Claude or ChatGPT, and the workflow improvements of able to allow someone that has very limited knowledge of Python or how to write a tool that exists. My fear of that is people are going to start producing tools or make things that are just there to exist, but not really doing anything.
What do you mean you're afraid that's going to happen? You see all the crap on Twitter on every 10 minutes.
Yeah, people are pumping out content or things that have already been done. That's always been an issue with cybersecurity. People reinvent tools that have existed for years, just in a different language or framework. And I think we're going to see issues or reiterations of that with AI for sure, based on people who maybe don't necessarily know in depth of what they're doing, but then want to publish something or make a pull request to a project, and here's this vibe coded tweak of what they did or feature.
It's probably the same thing that happened, but when all the hackers, how all the OGs felt when Metasploit came out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be a lot of noise. I'm still optimistic that we're not worried that an AI is going to come in and do a pen tester. We've always seen some automation that there's going to be this robot that can just replace you and can do all these pen test things, but I've yet to been impressed with any apps in the market that can do it. I think it's a supplement, and it's going to replace the old school Nessus, and it's a great supplement to have, but from a penetration perspective, that's kind of where we have the edge, at least a human in the loop.
It's going to get there.
Mail testing. Yeah,
it's going to take the lower level are like
the lower level run netexec, get domain admin through, the common attack paths, running responder, things like that. I think so, yeah.
But then like when there are times where on calls, people be like, oh, hey, yeah, we use, whatever. I'm not even going to name the tool or tools, but like we use this for like an AI penetration testing thing. It's like, cool. How does your regulatory agency feel about that? Right? Do they consider that a third party audit? Do they consider, are they cool with not having a human in the loop on that? You're hitting play on a playbook, right? I mean, we have conversations with some of the people that have had experience with these tools, and it's like they're just running playbooks. It's not necessarily, there's not a ton of AI going on, right? It's maybe, it's like you tell it like run this playbook, it runs a playbook, and then maybe it, will do a decent job sometimes of putting 2 and 2 together of something that's not actually in its playbook, but it actually sees something that it should maybe then go after, right? Again, this is all anecdotal, so I can't speak from perfect experience. And yeah, naturally we're going to poo-poo it because we're humans and we do this work, right? Compared to machines that are doing it. But I'm just saying, I think we're saying it's not there yet. It will get there, and you're just going to have to adapt to it, right? There's no way around it. You can't ignore it, and you also can't overhype it, I guess, best way to put it. So what else, Alex? How'd we do for our first ever webcast? We got, I don't know, technically we got 7 minutes left. We talked about the AI thing. I guess we could close with like, what's the biggest thing you think, what has changed in our jobs in the 7 to 8 years we've now been here, where you were like, didn't see that coming? Or like,
yeah,
wow, that's good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed my mind. I think we all saw it coming, but defensive measures and tools have gotten a lot better, which has made our jobs a lot harder too. Offensive security is probably the most difficult it's ever been.
Phishing's hard.
Phishing is very difficult. Actually doing realistic simulations and from start to end is very difficult. And that's based on where defensives have gotten a lot better from when we first started. You could run LSASE. People have been publishing tools forever and techniques. But now what I think I've been surprised about, at least what surprised me, is when I started, everyone was sharing every single piece of knowledge as a community. You'd be publishing a new technique. It wasn't privatized. It wasn't privatized in the sense of a competitive advantage, meaning this consultancy knows how to do X versus the other knows how to do another thing. But now that's kind of the shift that I start to see, that since offensives have gotten so much better, offensive security has gotten a lot harder, and people are hoarding private techniques to the point where, yes, the client will know the remediation steps, but other consultancies will have a competitive advantage based on what they know about a client's environment or an application or service and how to do an X technique that another person just doesn't because it's not shared. And that's unfortunate, in my opinion, but that's just the reality of what I've started to see, at least in the industry.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I mean, I don't know if it's an unfortunate thing. Oh no, it is an unfortunate thing. I think the barrier to entry, I feel like, is higher than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Even though there's more training and I guess at least like what feel like pathways into the field. Right? Like there's just so much now compared to what there was back when we started. And yet, perhaps because of that, maybe it's like similar to like coding boot camps, right? When everybody was like, oh, if you learn how to code, you'll never not have a job. How many people are out of work now that are coders? You know what I mean? So it's like, that kind of stinks. And I think it forces people to, I don't want to say lie, but like pump themselves up just to try to get in front of human eyes. Like it's not anybody's fault or their fault. I mean, it's certainly like the industry's fault, I guess you could say. But I mean, I feel like that change is like, not the best, I guess. I don't have an answer for it. Right. I don't know. I'm also not a technical recruiter with 25 years of experience, right? So like, I don't have the perfect view of how that's all gone down over the past, however many years, but that's just how it feels, right? I feel bad for people who are trying to get those jobs now and the slop and the grind and wherever they have to go to just to try to get in front of a human to try to talk to somebody. So cool. All right. What do we got? One more question. Thoughts on
We have one more question.
We got 3 minutes. Thoughts on senior pen testers picking junior apprentices for development. Wait, so Alex, what do you think that means?
I view it as
thanks for coming.
I view it as part of the job requirement, right? If you're a senior pen tester, I would expect you to mentor the rest of the team, especially juniors. So
Right.
kind of what we talked about with the tribal knowledge and information sharing, that's how everyone grows up, right? Like that's not, I don't know everything. I talk to Joe every time when we're on a pen test. If I get stuck or how he did X, Y, and Z,
Now
Joe will
that's
probably do the same. Yeah. Everyone talks. I mean, not everyone's going to be an expert with everything. So that's very important, not only for seniors to give them mentorship of how to run an engagement or how to do certain techniques, but that's a team thing, right? I view it as that's everyone's responsibility as a team to pick up where their area of expertise is, whether it be from social engineering or whatever the domain they're kind of covering, to give some coverage or at least growth for the mentor that they're training on.
It takes a village. Cool. All right. Want it there. Everybody 2 minutes to go to their 1 o'clocks if they have them. Thank you for coming. First ever webcast. Obviously, we can improve on this. I don't think it went too terribly. Yeah, we'll try to do this every couple of weeks or every month. We'll see how it goes. Try to come up with a cadence that everybody can follow. But for now, appreciate the time, and we will hopefully talk to and see all you guys soon. Have a good one.